I'm here again, and it's always a pleasure to be here with Titan of Hammer King to talk about the latest record from the band, Kingdomonium. I love the title. Out August 19th on Napalm Records. How are you doing today?
Hey Pedro, fantastic to be with you again. I'm fine. I'm in the middle. You are the middle of 7 interviews in a row. So it's a pleasure to talk to you. I remember last year, it feels like yesterday actually. So good to be
Yeah,
back.
I mean, you guys are busy releasing records. It does feel like you guys have so much material that you're
Mhm.
just pumping record after record is not necessarily a bad thing because I
No,
really feel
absolutely.
like this latest album is definitely better. And not to say that the previous album wasn't good because it was good, but this album, where would you guys hiding these songs? Because it feels like you guys didn't take a step forward. You guys took a leap forward with
Oh, thanks a lot.
Kingdomonium.
Very nice to hear that. Thank you. I mean, we didn't hide the songs anywhere. We hadn't written them. So last year it was. I mean, everybody knows there was no chance to play many concerts. So we did what musicians basically do. We created new music, and in our case, we received the music from the king, and which means that we put all the energy that we had into a positive thing. And then I think it was October when Napalm dropped us a mail and said, "Hey guys, we would like to do another album with you." And we said, "Yeah, we would like to do another album with you too." And they wanted to bring it out for the festival season in 22. And I said, "Yeah, why not?" And then said, "When you have the album, when you want to have the album out for the festival season, you have to deliver it on March the 1st." Okay, so that was interesting because I mean we had started working on the songs, but very loosely. So we had like, I don't remember, 36, 45, something around that, little folders with musical ideas in it with stupid names so that you at least can remember some of them. And we were starting to work really, really, really quickly then. And we put everything we had into it. We worked night and day on it. And we hit the studio at no on January the 31st. Yeah, exactly. So we had very, very much work to do in a short time, which is fantastic when it's music. And if you think back of the 80s, the golden 80s, you had a new Maiden album every year, sometimes even 2 Judas Priest or 2 Saxon albums in 1 year. So basically, I think the guys did the same. They didn't think, they just gave everything they had and they made an album.
When you guys start thinking about this record and putting these songs together, did you think that let's look at what was missing from the previous album and make sure it gets into this one? Or when you guys work on a record, you completely forget about everything that you've done before and it's just about that new album?
Um, basically the second. I mean, it's even more extreme. I would say we don't even think too much. I mean, sometimes you control, you might say we have too many fast songs, we have too many slow songs, something like this. But basically, music should probably not be about thinking. It should be about emotions, spirit, feeling, something like this. And especially when you're working under such conditions with very little time, you really can't think too much. We really worked on maybe 25 up to 30 ideas at the same time. And every time you went back to the rehearsal room, you would listen to all the ideas. And sometimes you felt like, I'm not doing this today. So you just leave it. And then another idea will inspire you. So you go with the passion that you have for this idea and work, keep working. And in the end, you will have like 12, 13, 14 songs that you really finished. And you pick the 10 best of it and make an album. So I don't think that we really reflect too much about the music. We just go with the flow, with the spirit of the moment.
And you mentioned back in the day, bands releasing 2 records in 1 year. That was not uncommon. You
No,
guys
no.
released 2 records in back-to-back years. Is there more advantages to this sort of format? I know you guys were able to do it because you have the extra time, but is there
Mm.
advantages, or do you also see some disadvantages with having 2 albums so close together?
I mean, usually I'd probably say it's a disadvantage because we could not really work the last year's album properly. But I mean, in these times where you couldn't play, it's only an advantage because I'm sitting here again talking to you. So we get more recognition everywhere in the world with only 8 shows in the meantime. So that's the advantage of it. And at the same time, I mean, when you're a musician, why on earth shouldn't you make an album when you can? I mean, that's something so natural, actually. I'd like to see things from the positive side anyway. And so when we're playing shows now, we're promoting brand new albums at the same time. And we even have it on the stage setting. You have the Kingdomonium backdrop in the middle, and you have the flags showing the artwork from the Hammer King album from 21 at the side. So to make clear that we're actually promoting two new albums at the same time, I think it's exciting.
I thought it was really cool that you guys added Ross the Boss on the Guardians of the Realm track. How did that come about? Whose idea was? Who made the phone call?
We didn't phone call at all. We used Facebook, but I mean, strangely, it wasn't my idea. It was Dolph's idea, the drummer's idea. He would we had this music, and we all agreed that this songs need like a typical Ross the Boss solo, and we should have played a show with Ross, no, two shows with Ross, and they all got canceled for COVID reasons, so we didn't play. But Dolph would tell me, "You have been talking with Ross lately because of the shows. Why don't you just ask him if he wants to play this Ross the Boss solo himself?" And I thought, yeah, why not? I mean, the idea is very good, actually. I sent him a message and said, "Ross, we got this traditional song. I think it oozes Ross the Boss everywhere. Would you be so kind and play it?" Yeah, and he said, "Send it over." And I think 3 or 5 days later, we had 8 different versions of a solo. And the problem with Ross is when he plays 8 solos, none of them sucks. So you have 8 good solos you have to choose from. And we honestly, we made, we took 2 halves. We have the first part of the solo is one take and the second half is a different take, because he plays these very, very interesting bended notes. They were so gigantic that I said, I need to have this and I need to have that. So please put it together. And we did that. So good work. He's a tremendous guitar player, really.
Was it fun for you to work with him again on this track and have that much material in your hands, 8 solos?
Absolutely. I mean, if we were like Wendy Dio, we would release a box set with all 8 unused solos now. Just read that in an interview with Vivian Campbell, said that about the Holy Diver remix. But I have one very good punchline to working with Ross, because somebody asked, "What's the difference working with Ross again?" And I said, "This time I had to pay him. Last time he had to pay me." That's the difference. But I mean, it wasn't to make it clear, it was not money for Ross. It was money for John Rupp, who recorded him, because John Rupp has a studio in New York City and he has to be paid because it's his profession. He's a fantastic guy. So not that anybody says Ross has to be paid for playing a solo for his old singer. So that's not the case. But it was fantastic. I mean, with all the years of distance in between, there's never been a bad thing between Ross and the guys from the original Ross the Boss band. So it's an inspirational guy. He's a super nice person, and he's a hell of a guitar player. So it was very exciting to hear what he does.
And speaking of guitar playing, this record has amazing guitar playing. Outside of that solo, this record has amazing guitar playing from front to back. I feel like when you look at the previous album, this one is a little bit more guitar driven, or at least more guitar centric. It makes itself noticeable from the beginning. So how was the behind the scenes to make that guitar sound so flamboyant, so larger than life on this album?
I mean, again, given the very short time that we had, we basically put everything that we thought of onto the demo, which means we had more guitars than before, and we had more choirs than ever before. And we decided when the demo was finished that it was too many choirs, because we are Blind Guardian fans, but we always say Blind Guardian have crossed a line, I think in '95, where the choirs got too large for our taste, actually. So we always say, let's not be Blind Guardian. And gladly, Jakob Hansen, when he mixed the album, he mixed the choirs, and all the choirs are actually really on the album, but he mixed them in a very, very tasty way. So the choirs are there, you feel it's epic, but they're not too much up front so that it drowns the lead vocals and the structure of the song. And with the guitars, maybe it's the same. We added many guitar parts, especially when it comes to the closing track, Age of Horizon. We call it the Guitar Fest, by the way. That's not from us. That Andy Powell said this about a Wishbone Ash track in the past, the Guitar Fest. And Gino and I are so happy to have the time to play more guitar, because usually the Hammer King songs are short and on the spot, so there's not much guitar playing going on. This time we had some bit longer songs, and we used the time to play guitar. And being a guitarist, I mean, it's fun, of course.
I want to go into your vocals, since you kind of segue into those choirs. I thought it was really well done throughout the entire album. The backing vocals, the choirs, it added volume to the song, if you will, but it didn't take anything away from the lead vocals, because the lead vocals were still at the front. They were still in the podium. It was that a balance that was obviously was important for you. You didn't want to go down that road of Blind Guardian, but was it easy to find that balance? Because it's not always easy to find that balance.
You're totally right. If I had it my way, I would have fucked up the balance, because on the demo, I'm a sort of a sucker for harmony vocals. So, oh, look, listen, that's so interesting, and this is so intriguing. You need to hear that. And it was so much that it really drowned the message or the melody of the song, the essence of the song. The good thing is that when Jakob did the mix, Jakob is a person who is very much lead vocals and drum focused. So basically what's important for the audience, the vocals and the beat. And he did the mix of Invisible King first. And Invisible King has many guitars and many vocals. And the mix was very, very organic. And I don't want to say reduced, but it was focused. And when we heard it, for the first time ever, I said, I will not make him change too much. I think this man sees the essence of the song that I can't see at the moment, because I'm so close, having such a short time, actually. So this time, for the first time ever, I think we accepted far more what the mastering and mix guy did than ever before, because usually we tend to tweaking every detail. So it was very helpful to have somebody from the outside and really focus on the songs.
I know that the question that I'm going to ask you is very hard to answer, because when you look at the record, every single song is a little bit of a child of yours. But is there a song on this album that you're very excited about playing live, perhaps above all others?
When you have many children, some of the children you simply don't like. No, it's yeah. Pariah Is My Name has been a favorite of mine, or a favorite of everyone in the band, right from the very beginning. Most of us really love the title track most, and Gino and I and Günt, the new bass player, are tremendous fans, huge fans of Age of Horizon. Live Long Dynasty is a special song because
that's a kick-ass track,
isn't it? Yeah, isn't it? Thank you.
It's one of my favorites. One of my favorites.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot. And you come from the United States. That's interesting, because the American people from Napalm Records said, this is not going to be a single. We don't like that.
Really?
And the Europeans said, what? That's obvious.
I actually just posted the review of the album on my channel, and that was one of my top 3 songs of the record. I think it has all the attributes of a single.
Yeah, it totally has. It totally has. Thanks a lot. Yesterday, I practiced here at this very table. I practiced the guitar solo, because it's a bit tricky. You have the tapping and you have to bend the string with your tapping finger. That's stupid, but it sounds fantastic. We really like that song a lot, but that was one of the songs that took a long road to come to the final form. We had at least 3 or 4 totally different drum arrangements. The slowish drum parts were fast before, and the groovy ones were slower before. It took a long road, actually. But in the end, we're very, very happy with it. But it must be polarizing, because I know 2 or 3 people who say, I don't like that song at all, but gladly the rest of the people, everybody likes the song. So we will play it live, and you will have the audience will give us a response, of course.
I think those 2 or 3
favorites now.
I think those 2 or 3 people that don't like the song don't have good taste. So
that's right.
I wouldn't worry about them. I wouldn't. I'm sure if you guys play it live, fans are going to love it. I think it's a phenomenal track. I mean, really, it has all the attributes of a single.
I think so.
It's memorable. It's a earworm. It's that kind of a song.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally think so. And I mean, I will tell Gino, he did the chorus. Gino is a kind of a person who always does one chorus on every album, most albums at least. And whenever he delivers many choruses, and most of them we don't use, but when he gives us one that we use, it's one of the strongest on the albums. last year it was King of Kings, which is fantastic. So I will tell him, he will be happy about that.
For sure. I have one last question for you, and I really have to ask you this question because with time, I've always been a fan of classic heavy metal and power metal, but I feel with time, those two genres are losing a little bit of their DNA. Bands that are power metal bands today, or that are classic heavy metal, or that would be classic heavy metal bands sounding, don't necessarily have the same attributes in their sound as what we grew up listening to.
Yeah.
How do you see these two very similar genres in terms of the evolution that they've had and where they're currently sitting in now?
I totally agree, because I think it was yesterday when I thought about Saxon, which is one of my favorite bands from the old bands, from traditional bands. And I thought Saxon might be my favorite band of the classic ones. And I think they have probably the most consistent discography of all of them. But practically none of the albums would be a 10 out of 10 for me. But the band is a 10 out of 10, which is interesting. And then I realized that beginning with Unleash the Beast in '97, they totally got heavier than ever before. And if you listen to the last 3 or 4 Saxon albums, they are so power metal. It's absolutely different from what they did at the beginning. And to answer your question, finally, I've never understood the difference between heavy metal and power metal anyway. So for me, as you said, it's close. For me, it's just the same. I really don't understand the difference, because as you put it, Helloween is a typical power metal band, but they started before this name ever existed. So for me, everything that is not thrash and death metal and some crossover stuff or prog metal, the rest, okay, Doom, I understand Doom, but the rest is all only heavy metal. I don't care.
It's interesting because when Metallica got started, they were labeled as a power metal band, because back then power metal was not power metal the way we see power metal. You know what I mean? So even the name of the genre has the definition of what power metal is has changed through time.
Yeah. So, and didn't Metallica have a demo called Power Metal?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think so. Yeah, must be.
And one of the things that I see the most to wrap up our conversation here is that a lot of bands now also introduced a lot of synthesizers, a lot of keyboards into their sound, to the point where it's a power metal album and you can barely hear the guitars because there's just keyboards and synthesizers. I want to give you guys kudos for not doing that on this record.
Thank you.
I feel like every band is following that formula, and I'm starting to remove them from my playlist because it's getting so boring. And I want to thank you guys for not doing that with this record. This record is a power metal album with great guitar sound.
And absolutely, that's one of the laws that we have in the band, is not to use keyboards. If we need some sort of an epic mood, we sing a choir because it's organic. We don't use keyboards. And I mean, I woke up in whenever the Keeper of the Seven Keys Legacy album from Helloween came out, the Keeper 3 album that's not called Keeper 3, I was playing the album and Gino was sitting in my car and I said, listen, what the fuck is that? The keyboards are louder than the guitars, and that was the first tour where they didn't even have a keyboard player anymore. It was all coming from the backing track then. And I said, I really don't like that. I mean, as good as the album is, but what would the songs lose if you took away the keyboards? They would only be better. So, and I mean, Sabaton is a big band, and they're probably very nice people, and they work very hard. But the last couple of Sabaton tracks, you hardly heard any guitar. It was really keyboards, drums, and vocals. It's good, but it's not my taste.
No, and it's not my taste either. And you see more and more bands moving into that direction. And I don't know. Once again, I mean, everybody does whatever they want to do, but I just feel like you're losing a little bit of what power metal is supposed to be all about, which is a great vocalist and then incredible guitar playing behind it. That's really, you know, the meat and potatoes, if you will.
Meat and potatoes. That's what I always say. It has to be meat and potatoes, tasty, clear to understand. Yeah, totally.
And keep your belly full. That's it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Titan, thank you very much for your time today. It's always a pleasure chatting.
I thank you. It was my pleasure.
I have a sneaky suspicion we're going to be talking again next year.
We try not to make an album in 23. Let's see what happens.
All right. Maybe an EP. I mean, you do have still some leftover Rasta Boss solos. So maybe an EP next year.
Box set, yeah. Very good.
All the best. Take care, man.
All the best. Thanks a lot. See you again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.